This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds.
All right, I don't have the time. Of course, the interest is there to play the whole thing, but I don't have time to play the whole thing now. And I just want to go right now to a young lady that I think was captured by CBS, that a winner of a Martin Luther King speech. Let me go to her, because we have to bring the kids into this thing and let them have a little...
When your lashes grow?
It's just a commercial, of course. I guess when you get to YouTube and you got 10,000 people listening to your channel, you know, you get commercials and everything to help you. But yes, the young lady will come on in a minute, and we will resume the program at that time. You know, we keep it going. But the idea is just that, you know, I guess when I look back at 5 years ago, you know, and coming in here and having not a clue of what I was going to do or how, I only thank God for the blessing to basically show me the way. He told me along, so I really thank God for that right there. And I have a lot of other work to do. I'm not finished. I'm just stepping from the radio at this point, and I'm going to continue to do YouTube shows and stuff. And I think that young lady here.
Annual Gardere MLK Junior Oratory Competitions, which are held in Dallas and Houston. 4th and 5th graders give speeches on what they hope to achieve in their lives based on Dr. King's achievements. And this time it came down to 20 youngsters.
The anticipation was palpable.
Well, I'm very excited about my speech.
Welcome to the 18th Annual Gardere MLK Oratory Competition.
These little voices spoke with big passion about their hero.
Dr. King's actions has taught me not to just knock on the door of opportunity, but to kick it down.
His words, efforts, and passion showed me I could be anything I want to be.
Finally, one winner announced.
So that means the 2010 winner of the 18th annual Gardner MLK Junior Oratory Competition is Tamia Gaines, John Haley Bryan Elementary School.
And then another.
This year's first place winner, Christian Bergs. Great job, you did it this year.
And the big winners are here with us, fifth graders Tamia Gaines of Dallas and Christian Bergs of Houston. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
What a moment it must have been like for you, Tamia. You were so excited you couldn't hide it. What did it mean to you to win something like this?
It means that I worked really hard and that I can achieve my dreams as long as I work hard.
How hard did you work on this speech?
Every night, every day, 24 hours, just straight on the line.
You're so young. What do you know about Dr. King, and how did you decide what you would put in your speech?
It's just when you start learning about him and seeing what he does for us, it just comes out.
It just comes out from your soul.
Yes.
Or something. Christian, let me ask you, because today is a day when we're all supposed to be honoring Dr. King and his legacy. How do you think that is the best way to honor Dr. Martin Luther King?
This speech competition is an awesome way to honor Dr. King's life and legacy. You have 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds speaking about their dreams without being lynched or beaten up or getting bit by police dogs. And that's what he fought for. He fought for the rights of African Americans.
What were the most important points that you wanted to make in your speech?
I want to talk about young men. I wanted to talk about the young men and how they needed to step up and take care of their children. I wanted to talk about how education was not only important, but it was necessary.
Each of you were asked, what will I be able to achieve in my life because of what Dr. King achieved in his? What do you think the answer to that is?
Well, I aspire to attend the University of California, Los Angeles, and now I can achieve my goals because Dr. King fought for the rights of African Americans.
And would you like to give a message this morning to people in this country, Tamia? So much help is needed, not only in this country, but in Haiti as well. What would you say? What would Dr. King say?
Just keep holding on and everything's going to be okay. Trust us because everything is going to be okay. Because we have people giving you food and water and building up the buildings and stuff. So everything's going to be okay.
If you guys are our future, I believe you. Thank you. Tamia, Christian, great job.
Wow.
Nice to have you here.
Wow, that right there was great. You see, and I think that
Are your counters bounty
when I
clean?
look back,
In this lab test, just one.
when I look back at the show and everything, and I myself, tried to do the best I could, and I brought some of the kids in on Town Talk Show, and here's one young man that I brought it out. I want you to listen to him speak. But I did it though. I mean, I brought him in, and let's try to get this one going here. Okay. And I brought people, young kids in, and I think that's what it's all about, passing the buck. Letting them know what we went through.
Hello.
Here
My
it
name
is.
is Darren Pelt. I am a proud member of the Piscataway Chapter 1 New Jersey Order. Today I will be reading an excerpt from the speech, I See the Promised Land, given by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 3rd, 1968, a day before his assassination. This happened to be the last speech of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s career. Now I will present my speech. Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days. These days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. Several years ago, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written. And while I was sitting there, autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing, and I said yes. And the next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and that blade had gone through. And the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you drown in your own blood. That's the end of you. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in a wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in. And from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I have received one from the president and the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what the letter said. But there was another letter that came in from a little girl, a young girl who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I will never forget it. It says simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at White Plains High." She said, "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I am a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing to say to you that I am so happy you didn't sneeze. And I want to say tonight, I want to say that I am happy I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I would have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the Founding Fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere. Because a man can't ride you back unless it's bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had.
I tell you, I'm out of time and everything. I just want to say this right here, we all can do our part. Although this isn't like CBS and I couldn't give the honors that I would have liked to give to the young people. But I done what I could. I just want to say good night, and I'll see you next week for the last time. God bless you. This is the American Reverend Zachariah A. Jackson from the Church of What's Happening Now.
Hi, this is Dr. Bill Meyer for Focus on the Family's Weekend Magazine. Make sure to join us this weekend as